All right, we're back. Chris Mannix, Sergio Mora. He's the fighter. I'm the writer. Getting a little side eye from Sergio. Was a little cranky coming over here.
I was.
Before the show. Now he's kind of settled in. Maybe you've had a cup of coffee. I don't know, but you're...
Mannix, you know me well.
I do.
You noticed that I slept on the wrong side of the sofa this past night or past month or... So you understand me well, my friend. Those 7 years of working together, you know how to judge this book by this cover. And life is swinging at me and I'm dodging and moving and luckily I have good defense.
Yes, I do like to think I speak fairly fluent Sergio at times, and I do know where you're coming from. We've got a lot to get into on this show. We're going to talk about the recent declaration from Tyson Fury that he's only coming back for one opponent, and it's not the opponent that you might think. We're going to dive deeper into the Devin Haney-Brian Norman Jr. fight that was announced a couple of days ago. We're going to talk about Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. getting set to run it back just about, 4 months after they had a war in the ring. We'll get into that. But first, Sergio, I want to introduce a new segment here on the show where we're going to talk about the winners and losers of the week. Each one of us is going to pick a winner that we'd like to acknowledge had a good week, and then we'll pick a loser or losers that had a bit of a rough week. So why don't you start? Your winner of this past week is who?
Well, I thought you were going to start with the loser because that's the one that I'm really excited to talk about.
Okay.
But okay, the winner of this week is Floyd Schofield, man. I think he shut a lot of people up coming back from all that criticism, all that negativity to do what he did and knock out Tevin Farmer, a slick defensive southpaw that couldn't get knocked out by power punchers in 24 rounds with William Zepeda, couldn't get knocked out by the other kid that he's just fought before that. It's impressive. It's really impressive. Two undefeated volume punchers that came after his head and weren't able to do it. He goes and knocks out Tevin Farmer. Floyd Schofield's my winner.
Yeah, I was impressed, as impressed as I possibly could be with Floyd Schofield Jr. He had a lot of pressure on his shoulders coming into that fight. Like, everybody thought he ducked Shakur Stevenson. A lot of people, us included, thought that Tevin Farmer was going to beat him because Tevin Farmer looked really good in losses to Raymond Morataya.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, two to William Zepeda. But he went out there and just leveled Tevin. Now, that first shot from Floyd Schofield Jr., Tevin never really recovered from it. And now Floyd is right back there in the mix. I hope we see him next week in New York at the Zepeda-Shakur Stevenson fight. I think if Golden Boy's smart, Floyd is sitting ringside, ready to call out the winner of that fight. If it's Shakur, there's that natural rivalry between the two. If it's Zepeda, it's an easy fight to make. It's a Golden Boy type of fight, a title fight that they can make a main event sometime later this year. I agree. Floyd Schofield, big winner. On the card this past weekend, I want to give props to Holly Holm, the longtime boxing champion, UFC great, mixed martial arts great. She came back and won her first fight in a boxing ring in about 12, 13 years, winning a unanimous decision against an undefeated fighter on the undercard of the Jake Paul event. I didn't know what to expect from Holly Holm. She's 43 years old, has not boxed in a very long time, is a legend in the combat sports space, but she came out and looked pretty good, I thought, in a win over a pretty good fighter that she was facing at that time. So I'm curious to see what's next for Holly Holm. She fought at 135 for this fight. That's around the weight class that Amanda Serrano fights in. I could see MVP making a Holly Holm Amanda Serrano fight. I think Serrano would be a big favorite in that fight, but Holly's got a big name, big following. So good for Holly Holm for bouncing back and putting herself right back into the boxing mix after a long time off. Losers this week. Give me your loser of the week that you are so very excited about.
Chris Mannix for being delinquent on his podcast payments.
Oh,
man, you haven't paid me in forever, dude. All right, so you, all right, because me, Anton, our producer, everyone else here, we need to get paid. We know how you people are normally.
Who are you people? White people?
Boston area writers.
Okay, Boston area writers. All right.
Yeah. So you college educated, responsible people are normally good with bills and payments. You're delinquent, my friend.
I am not delinquent. I am not delinquent. There's nothing delinquent about me. By the way, You have done nothing to get said money.
I'm the
All
talent.
you are doing,
I'm the
fine,
talent.
you want to do this? All that you are doing is going on the Notes app of your phone and typing in the dates that you work. You're doing nothing with that information. You're just screen grabbing it from time to time and sending it to me. That's the only thing you're contributing to. That's not an invoice, just so you know.
How do you think I've survived ever since I had an iPhone?
I have absolutely no idea.
That's
I don't know
exactly
how
what I
you've
do.
survived. I don't know how you've survived since age like 16 on. I don't.
God loves me. My loser of the week is Chavez Jr.
Okay.
Chavez Jr. for not throwing any punches, for embarrassing himself on the biggest stage possible. And this was a huge stage. I mean, not only was it a boxing stage, and it was an arena that was packed with rabid, passionate Mexicans, and you had every other ethnicity there too. But look, we know that Mexicans are the biggest pay-per-view buyers, especially in the Southern California area. Chavez Jr. had the perfect opportunity to salvage that Mexican pride and machismo that his legendary father and his last name gave him, and he did nothing with it. He wet the bed. Didn't punch, and he let a Disney star and a long-distance cousins of yours beat him in Jake Paul. It's ridiculous. Chavez Jr. is my loser of the week.
You know, not every white guy is related to each other.
Ohio is near Massachusetts.
You think Ohio's near Massachusetts?
Okay, my demographic's bad, but it's
Geography, not demographics. Geography. Your geography is bad.
Is it Northeast still?
No. Ohio's in the Midwest.
Okay,
Massachusetts in the Northeast. You're way
I'm
off.
wrong.
Somebody get you a map so you can take a look at it. I don't disagree on Chavez Jr. It was as dismal a performance as he could have delivered. He had to have known he had to do something in the early rounds to give himself half a chance to come up with that late surge, but he did nothing for the better part of 7 rounds. Started to pick it up in the 8th, did a little bit more in the 9th and 10th, but nowhere near enough to win a decision. I will die on this hill that Jake Paul is getting better. He's getting better. Does he belong in the world rankings? That's debatable.
You know what I was thinking of as my loser for this week? Speaking of which, I was thinking about putting the WBA as the losers for ranking them under 15 already, but I'll maybe save that for next week. Either way, there's a lot of losers in boxing and a lot of winners, so this is a good little segment. We're going to have a lot of hate mail coming.
Hate mail. What is this? The early
Whatever
90s?
it is, we're going to make a lot of enemies if you're going to start calling people losers in the fighting field.
We're not calling the people, although Chavez was actually a loser and didn't do anything in that fight. It's more about the losers of the week, and I think Chavez belongs on that list. My losers of the week, though, are Ryan Garcia and Oscar De La Hoya, who are at it again with each other. And it's disappointing, and they're losers because of this, because I thought that they were past the issues that they've had in the past. You know, they've had a very turbulent relationship. You remember the build up to the Oscar Duarte fight? They were going at it. Now, Ryan back on social media again, going at Oscar. Oscar on social media going back at Ryan. My understanding is that Ryan's frustration is contractually related. I don't know what exactly happened there between Golden Boy and Ryan Garcia, but my belief is that this is over whatever is going on with Ryan's contract, but it's not good. Like, it's not good to have Ryan, who is one of the biggest stars still in boxing, being in a fractured relationship with his promoter. Maybe they can move past it. Ryan needs to get back in the ring as soon as he's healthy enough to do it. But I think it's just bad for both sides to have these two guys.
I think it's
going
bad
at it.
for Ryan Garcia because he's the one that, needs to salvage his reputation. He's the one that, sometimes he says all the right things and then he just goes off the charts and says all the worst things.
Well, we don't know what his...
Hoya, on the other hand, is a promoter. So no matter what he does, whether it's good, bad, or dancing in his underwear like he normally does, he's getting attention. And attention is what a promoter is supposed to do.
But this isn't about, hold on, this isn't about that. But this is about whatever issues Ryan and Oscar have. And you're a former champion. I'm sure you can relate to frustrations that a fighter may have dealing with the contract that a promoter is holding them to. I'm sure you can understand that.
Absolutely. Every fighter can. And you don't vent that on social media. That's just like...
If social media was around in your day, you would have vented. I wouldn't have. I disagree.
I would. That's another subject. No, I wouldn't have, because I would have started social media a long time ago. But I didn't want that attention.
You tweet constantly now.
I do because I'm a has-been. But when I was in my prime, I was still fighting. I didn't want that. So I had to evolve with the times.
When you were in your prime, Twitter barely existed.
It was coming out.
It was coming out.
Look,
like right around the Mosley fight. Did you want to tweet about the Mosley fight?
Oh, I would have went crazy. I had to evolve with the times because the times were leaving me behind. So I had to jump on board the technology ship.
Yep.
So anyway, yeah, I think Oscar is doing great, man. What he's doing on social media and those videos that he does.
I think it's social media guy. Clapback Thursday.
Ryan Garcia, on the other hand, he's been positive and negative, hot and cold, and when he's cold and meaning bad, it's terrible because he said some bad things. So,
yeah, but don't you think that Ryan? This isn't yes, what Ryan did in 2024 was really problematic. A lot of the things that he said, some of the racial stuff that he put out there, it was bad. And he has apologized for that. Like he acknowledged the issues that he was dealing with in 2024. I don't look at this current situation as having anything to do with that. I think this is about Ryan and whatever issues he has with Golden Boy, with his contract, with whatever is going on there. He's got an injury that he's dealing with. He's trying to get past that, trying to get back in the ring, trying to reclaim some control over his career. I don't think they're the same at all. I think those issues are entirely separate. I think either way, though, those two sides need to get on the same page. We cannot have Ryan Garcia fight just one time in 2025. And it cannot be that fight that we saw against Rolly Romero. He's got to get back. He's got to get his momentum back. Golden Boy's got to help him do that. And I think that's in the best interest of everybody involved. All right, let's talk about Tyson Fury, the former heavyweight champion, retired after the loss to Oleksandr Usyk back in December. Most people believed that Tyson's retirement was going to be short-lived based on the fact that a lot of Tyson's retirements are short-lived. Eddie Hearn was hoping to make an Anthony Joshua fight against Tyson Fury. It did seem like Tyson was angling towards that. There was a lot of videos of him on social media, back in the gym, working with Sugar Hill. All that's kind of gone away. And Tyson was over in Europe this week. And when asked by reporters about a comeback, he said there's only one fighter that he would come back for, and that is Oleksandr Usyk. He wants to go a third time with Oleksandr Usyk instead of looking for the more lucrative matchup against Anthony Joshua. What do you think of Fury saying he's only coming back for Usyk?
He's a born fighter. He's a born champion. He's a man that wasn't bred to lose. And finally, when he does come up short towards the end of a career, he was reigning on top for such a long time. He was the baddest man on the planet with a namesake like Tyson. He was the heavyweight champion of the world. Then finally he meets, his foe, someone that he can't beat, someone that's really, tricky to hit, a southpaw, someone that with that Ukrainian style, it's a headache to beat. But a prideful man, a fighter, the Gypsy King, this man, just everything he's conquered in life, inside the ring and outside the ring. He's never been told no or something that he can't do because he proves everyone wrong. He wasn't able to prove anyone wrong in this rematch. He got bested and beat by the better boxer and the better man. He got beat
worse.
Twice.
Yeah.
Twice. The first one was a competitive split decision loss. Second time was a unanimous decision and more convincing. I get where that pride comes from, and I love it. I love Tyson Fury doing this. He's going to come up short a third time. It's going to be like Wilder versus him. Wilder, he just had Wilder's number. Usyk has Fury's number. But I love the pride because the fighting spirit is still there. And you're not going to go backwards. You only want the guy that took your unblemished record, the one that put 2 losses on your record. That's the one you want to go after. That's the only way you're going to get your pride back. And then maybe you can sell off into the sunset if you're Tyson Fury. But I get it and I love it because no one's going to pick up his motivation to train hard and to really be dedicated and motivated to just beat one man. One man has my number. I need to conquer that challenge. I love that. But that's the only fight I want to see Tyson Fury in.
That's the only fight you want to see Tyson Fury in?
At this stage of his career, absolutely.
You don't want to see Tyson against Anthony Joshua?
Yeah, of course I would want to see that.
Now that's two fights you want to see him in.
Hold on, but if you give me a choice, I'd rather see Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. If you give me a choice.
Okay, yeah, look, there's a lot of potential options out there. Wilder coming back after that win over Tyrell Herndon, he put himself back in play. I saw Shelley Finkel, the advisor to Wilder, say this week they want to do one more kind of tune-up fight, which I think is the right thing before they go into a big fight against AJ in 2026. I admire Fury wanting to prove that he's the better man for all the reasons you said. He is a prideful guy. He's a fighting man. The guy was born like 1 pound, born early, and he's turned into this 6'6" or whatever he is monster that became one of the great heavyweights of this generation. But if an Anthony Joshua fight is staring him in the face for November or December of 2025, you got to take it, because the money that is going to be available for that type of fight is going to be huge. Now, Tyson's made a lot of money in his career. Like, these Saudi deals have probably put tens of millions of dollars, if not more, into his bank account. But even though I guess a Fury-Usyk trilogy fight would be kind of interesting because the first two were pretty good, I'm much more interested in seeing a first fight between Fury and AJ. I mean, how many years have these two guys been dancing around each other? You go back to when we were so close. What was it, 2023? The summer of 2023, when we thought we were going to get that matchup. Instead, or 22, I guess it would probably be. I guess instead, AJ defends his title against Usyk, loses, and then that sets off the entire sequence of events that led us to this point. Like, we got to see it, don't we? Like, Wembley Stadium, Tottenham Hotspur, O2 Arena, I don't know, wherever you want to put it, it is going to sell out and do a big gate. It's going to do 1 million+ pay-per-view buys in the UK. It's not the event it could have been 3 or 4 years ago, but it's still a huge event. I don't really get, like, I'm sure Tyson's got some smart people in his team. He's got Frank Warren, his promoter. He's got Spencer Brown, his manager. I know these guys want to see Fury against AJ, because not only is that a big money fight, it's a fight that I would favor Fury to win. Like, I wouldn't favor Fury to beat Usyk a third time. I would favor him to beat Joshua a first time.
You don't get it. You don't understand it because you're not a fighter. You're a spineless writer. Okay. You don't know what it's like to have pride.
Is it necessary to include the spineless part of it all?
Cowardly, right?
Okay.
One of those. You need to understand the immense pride and ignorance too, by the way. All right. So I'm not just going to, toot the horn of fighters. Ignorance and the immense pride of fighters, of champions that can't take losing, man. They have to keep trying and trying and trying until, one, they win, or two, they get knocked out cold and no one wants to see it again. Think Deontay Wilder, when he kept going back at, trying to get his win against Tyson Fury. Fury just kept on beating him up even worse every single time they stepped in. Some guys just have your number. That's just the way it is. Some guys have your number. Either they're going to outbox you, they're going to beat you convincingly, or they're going to knock you out every single time you step in the ring with them. And, it's up to their team and their promoter to sway that fighter in another direction, because, you're not going to beat this guy. Tyson Fury, whether he faces Anthony Joshua in all those arenas that you're talking about, Deontay Wilder, or anyone else. One, he's a great champion who's only beaten by one fighter, and that's a great legendary name in Usyk. But two, he's a master showman. He's a master promoter. Wherever he fights, anywhere in the world, he's going to sell out the show. Whether it's here in LA or across the pond in the UK, he's going to fill out arenas, and he's gonna be himself. Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King. All eyes are on him. No matter who is the B-side to him, it's going to sell. So I'm on board, but I would hope it's Anthony Joshua.
You hope it's Anthony Joshua? You just said you hope it's Usyk.
No, What? I never said it's Usyk. Rewind this. I said I would love to see Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua. Usyk's the bad name for him. It's a bad mix for him.
You just, I swear to God, you said that.
I said fighters have pride and they want to go back to the guy that beat them. I don't want to see a third Usyk and Tyson Fury fight, because I know it's going to be the same thing. That guy has his number. I just understand the ignorance and pride of a fighter.
Okay,
that's it.
Well, then we agree on that, because I think it's not like Tyson Fury can only do one. And in fact, if he beats AJ in a high profile fight, that will probably increase the appetite or the interest in a third fight with Oleksandr Usyk. I think he could have 2 more fights, big fights. Look, Tyson has vacillated between wanting to retire and wanting to fight till he's like 50. Like, he's gone back and forth. I think if he wants to cap his career in a big way, a lucrative way, Anthony Joshua at some point this year, Oleksandr Usyk next year, if Usyk is still the champion after fighting Daniel Dubois, and we go from there.
What does vacillating mean?
Go back and forth. He goes back and forth. Okay. All right. I don't know how to segue from that at all.
I don't think you're speaking to a boxing audience. Don't say vacillated.
I didn't say vacillated. You think you're confusing with Vaseline?
What did you say? What
I
was the
said
word?
vacillate. Yeah, not vacillated. Okay.
Whatever.
Anyway.
Don't say it again.
All right. In November, we've got a big fight in the welterweight division. Brian Norman Jr. is going to defend his WBO title against Devin Haney. This is a really interesting fight. You know, Brian Norman has been a fighter on the rise, really burst onto the scene with his win over Giovanni Santillan, has had a couple of significant wins since then, most recently going over to Japan and handing Jin Sasaki a pretty brutal knockout loss. Devin Haney, well known, 135-pound undisputed champion, 140-pound title holder, has had a rocky 12, 13 months, you know, lost to Ryan Garcia, had that loss overturned, came back against Jose Ramirez, and looked a little gun shy, for being honest, in that fight. Now we get these two guys meeting in Saudi Arabia in November. I don't even know. I'm not even sure yet who I'd make the favorite in this fight. Like, Brian Norman is explosive. He's probably naturally bigger. He is naturally bigger, but he is vastly less experienced on the stage as Devin Haney. Devin Haney, I would say, at his best, is better than Brian Norman, but I have no idea if Devin Haney is going to be at his best. What do you think of this matchup?
I love the fact that Devin Haney has been fighting champion after champion. It's incredible. When you look down his resume, and I tweeted about this, that he's building a Hall of Fame resume. It's incredible. He's cut from that Mayweather Junior cloth where he just wants to face champion after champion. And you look down his last 8 opponents, 7 of them were world champions. Another one was Ryan Garcia. I mean, you put the win-loss ratio of those 8 fights, it's 248 wins, only 16 losses. That is great. Those are great numbers when you're dealing with Devin Haney. So I respect Devin Haney. I understand why Devin Haney would want to keep facing the best, because the best names bring out the best paychecks. So he doesn't want to go backwards. He doesn't want to get a gimme fight for a lot less money. Haney's making a lot of money, millions of dollars, and he's a $1 million fighter. He's a 7-figure fighter. He doesn't want to go backwards. Brian Norman Jr. is a devastating puncher. And what he did in Japan was, you would think that a guy like Haney, who's coming off of 2 shaky performances, would want to steer clear of a fighter like Norman Jr. Nope, he's going to the fire. So how can you not applaud and praise this man for fighting champion after champion, fighting nothing but winners, not being a puncher? That's another thing. You're not a puncher. You're a boxer, and that's the reason Bob Arum called him a track star, right? He's not a track star. He just doesn't have power, man. What do you expect him to do when he's facing power punchers? To go punch for him? That'll be lunacy. That'll be suicide. You got to box the fighters, and the fighters got to outfight the boxers. That's just how this game works. Devin Haney is going to be just fine if he goes back to the basics, and that's the jab. One of the best jabs in the business still, using that fight IQ, moving around the ring, and maybe some more upper body movement, because he doesn't take punches as well as other guys, especially at 147. So he's going to keep that chin tucked, especially if he's going to be fighting punchers like Norman Jr. But he's not a track star. He just needs to get his confidence back. One big win, I think Haney's back.
Not for nothing, I do think Haney takes punches pretty well. Like,
no, he doesn't.
He took them against Ryan.
No, he doesn't.
And kept getting up.
He kept going down. That means you can't take a punch. Taking a punch is being able to roll with the heavy shot that you got hit with, not to go down. Felix Trinidad didn't have a chin. He's a Hall of Famer, one of the biggest punchers in boxing, didn't have a chin. Julian Jackson, maybe the hardest puncher in boxing, didn't have a chin. Anthony Joshua doesn't have a chin. You can't grow chin. You can't grow muscles around your mandible.
Okay, but
jawline?
You
can't grow it.
Anthony Joshua has been knocked out. Devin Haney, even in the worst performance of his career, was not knocked out. And pound for pound, Ryan Garcia is one of the biggest punchers in boxing. I will continue to say that fight, to me, showed that Devin has a chin and was not evidence that he does not. That being said, this is fascinating to me because I don't know if Brian Norman Jr. is for real.
I do.
When he won that title against Santillan, that was an interim title at the time. Terrence Crawford was the full title holder when they won that interim title. Like, that title being on the line was more about Santillan than it was about Brian Norman. Like, Santillan had just beaten Alexis Rocha, like, Top Rank petitioned the WBO to make it for an interim title. Like, Santillan was expected to win that fight. That was a homecoming fight for him, fighting in the San Diego area. And then Brian Norman upset the apple cart, went in and just beat the bejesus out of Santillan, showing that he was on a much higher level than anyone, including his own promoter, really expected. He followed it up with a knockout win over Derek Cuevas. He followed it up with a knockout win over Jin Sasaki. I'm just saying, Devin is a much better boxer than any of those guys. Like, Devin may frustrate people with his unwillingness to engage at times, but he is an elite pound for pound level talent as a boxer. And this is where we're going to find out. We're going to find out if Brian Norman is good because a lot of his opponents have kind of just stood there and taken punches. I mean, look, Jin Sasaki had a nice record. No defense whatsoever. Go back and watch that fight if you haven't seen it. Like, just kind of walked into shots.
His offense was the defense. And
Right.
I have a question for you.
All right.
Who's a scarier puncher, Brian Norman Jr. or Ryan Garcia?
Ryan Garcia.
You're wrong. You're wrong. They're different type of punchers. Ryan Garcia is behind speed. It's a snappy, catch you off guard. Bamboo speed is what my trainer used to call it. A bamboo is like, it's not heavy, it's not strong, it's not nothing. But you snap it at the end of the bamboo, it's gonna sting. It's gonna hurt. That's the type of power that Ryan Garcia has. The type of power that Brian Norman has is sledgehammer power. It's hammer power. It's totally different types of power. I mean, yes, they're both going to hurt you, but they're going to hurt you in different ways. I think Brian Norman's a bigger puncher.
I agree that
I agree it's different. Puncher too.
And I don't think that's true either. I agree Brian Norman has real power, obviously. 21 knockouts at his 28 wins. But what kind of fighter would you be more nervous to go up against? The guy with the crushing power or the guy with the power you can't see?
I just told you, Brian Norman. If I were to choose who would I would want to fight, Ryan Garcia or Brian Norman, easily Ryan Garcia, because Ryan Garcia is not a volume puncher. He's not. He gets aggressive with certain fighters. He got aggressive on Haney, and he got over aggressive with Tank. Tank made him pay for it. But no, I look at Ryan Garcia. No upper body movement, no footwork. He's real stiff. Man, I would rather fight him. Brian Norman Jr. is just scary, more fluid, more relaxed, and it's just, he has bricks in those hands, man. Brian Norman Jr. is a problem at 147, and he's the biggest puncher at 147.
I would agree with that now that Boots is out of the weight class. All I'm saying is he's untested at this point. Like, you can't say that wins over Santillan, Cuevas, and Jin Sasaki are equivalent. Any of those fights are equivalent to Devin Haney. I think Devin, even though he didn't look great in that last fight, I'm sure he'd acknowledge that, is so skilled and so sharp and has such a good jab. Like this, I think the last fight against Ramirez was under 147. It was like a catch weight. This will be at a full 147 pounds. I think he's going to be better.
No, he's not going to be better. Devin Haney doesn't have power. He hasn't had a knockout since 2019 where, you know, he got the thunder in his eye against Abdullayev. Everything else has been unanimous decision.
No, that was against thunder in his eye, or fire in his eyes. It wasn't Zaur Abdullayev. No, it wasn't.
That's the last time that...
I'm telling you, it wasn't Zaur Abdullayev. He stopped with the one shot in the...
All right, well, it was that thunder in his eye then. Yeah. I don't know who it was, but that's the last time.
Antonio Moran, he beat.
Antonio Moran, even before 2019. So this is a man that's gone unanimous decision, 12 rounds his entire time. He's not going to be a puncher.
So what? He's a boxer. I'm not saying he's going to be...
at 135 and 140.
He's never going to be a puncher. I'm not saying that, but
I expect him to be better at 147.
I think, Sergio, you know this. Like, he's had to cut down in weight, and it's been a lot for him to do that. 135 was a miracle. He made 135 as many times as he did. Didn't stay very long at 140. You know that when you are allowed to put more weight on your body, there are benefits to that. He's probably going to have a better chin in those situations. Look, if Brian Norman connects the way he connected against Jin Sasaki, it's over. I'm just saying Devin is a lot better defensively than Jin Sasaki is, and I think he's going to be a handful for Brian Norman. We're going to find out. We're going to find out in this fight if Brian Norman is the real deal. He looks like it. He's looked really good against B and C level opponents. Let's see how he looks against a guy with real top 10 pound for pound talent. All right, the other fight that we're going to get this fall is in September, where we're going to have the Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. rematch. Turki Al-Sheikh announcing that during the week. These two guys fought an epic 12-round fight back in April. Chris Eubank Jr. wound up winning by unanimous decision. That was the right decision. He won that fight pretty clean. Conor Benn, though, had some moments. He is the younger fighter. He's fighting at a weight he's probably going to be more comfortable at, because Chris Eubank's going to have to deal with that same rehydration clause. Same rules apply in this fight. 160-pound weight limit, 170-pound rehydration the next day. Who do you like in the rematch now that we have it on the books for September?
This time around, I think I'm going to go Ben. The first time around, I believe I chose Eubank because I just think the experience was going to be too much, the length, the strength, that jab, and he's disciplined keeping that range. Eubank Jr., that's his MO, that jab to keep you outside, and then when you get inside and break that range, he has a really sneaky uppercut. Those are the two punches that controlled Ben for the majority of that fight. Ben came out way too emotional. So in this fight, I'm going to favor Ben if he controls that anger, that emotion, that he was overloading with those overhand rights way too early. His fight against Eubank Jr. should be controlled, strategic, emotions in check, jabbing his way in. And they're not long jabs where you can get countered over the top. They have to be short jabs. You have to have quick feet to break that distance. That's the main thing that Eubank's going to have the advantage on the shorter, younger Ben. It's that gap. That wide gap, that long jab, and the experience. This is a man who's fought at 168. Ben's coming up from 147. So whether it's a rehydration clause or not, this is still a naturally bigger, stronger man that's accustomed to fighting bigger, stronger super middleweights. So Ben's power, Ben's rage, and all that emotion that he brings to the ring, that doesn't faze Eubank at all. It actually plays into his discipline and his veteran tactics. But I'm gonna favor Ben on this one just because I think he's smart enough. I know I got to know him personally. I know how emotional he is, but I also know how intelligent he is, and that's what I like about him. So I think the embarrassment of that first fight, what he learned from that first fight, and the little tweaks that he needs to make to favor that fight in his direction, I think he's good enough, smart enough, and he has the right people in his team to make all those necessary changes and get this win the second time.
You think the first fight was an embarrassment for Ben? I don't think so. I thought his stock went up after that fight.
It was maybe not embarrassment after he got all the praise for how great of a fight it was, but you can bet he had his head down that night. You can bet that he was emotional, maybe even crying. The interviews that he gave, and it took the fans and everyone saying how great of an event and fight it was to applaud him, and then you could start taking like a victory tour after that loss because everyone loved it. I loved it. There's no losers in that fight. So it took a while for Ben to really swallow that major pride that he has, that famous last name he had. He had a lot of burden on his shoulders, and for being 28 years old, it really has a psychological effect on these young champions and fighters. But I think Ben came out from that darkness and really can pick himself up and do something great.
Yeah. So the timing, there's a lot of variables here. The timing of this fight to me is interesting because it is a pretty fast turnaround to go from April to September following a war like that. Chris Eubank is the older fighter, 35 years old.
He'll be 36 by the time they fight in September.
I would imagine, and look, I've been hearing some things about how just Eubank, I don't know how eager Eubank is to do this in September. He ultimately may go through with it. It could be fine, but I think that Eubank would probably prefer to have this fight a little bit later in the year, or maybe even not at all. Like if you're Chris Eubank Jr., you've got to be looking at what Canelo is going to do in September.
Right.
Because if Canelo wants to keep taking the kind of fights that make him a lot of money and don't put him at huge risk, Chris Eubank Jr. is on that short list of guys that would make a lot of sense. Canelo has never fought over in the UK. It would be a new experience for him there. Like, I think somewhere in Chris Eubank's mind and the mind of his team, they're probably thinking like, you know what? Let's take a relatively low-level fight at 168, and then let's challenge Canelo to come over and fight in the fall. Let's challenge for Canelo's super middleweight titles in the fall if Canelo beats Terrence Crawford. So I wonder kind of what the motivation is like for Eubank Jr. He can't be all that eager to cut back down to 160. He can't be all that eager to get back into a situation where he's got to rehydrate to 170. He knows now that Conor Benn is dangerous, that Conor Benn can dig deep and can hurt him in a 12-round fight at this weight class. For Conor Benn, this fight's everything. Like I heard Eddie Hearn say this week, like Conor would fight tomorrow against Chris Eubank Jr. He wants to get his lick back. He wants this fight at this weight, in this venue, in this time frame. That to me is a variable in all this. That's why I like Conor Benn in the rematch too. And I think he has a chance to stop him. Even like if Eubank doesn't come in the right mindset, and if he comes in, a little bit with a little more wear and tear on his body, I think Conor, the fresher fighter, can get a stoppage here.
I think you're wrong, as always, with the stoppage. I don't see a welterweight knocking out a guy that's already accustomed to fighting super middleweights. But he hurt him late in that fight, and that's when the legs started going away. So even if he does go down, he'll get back up. Conor Ben doesn't have the power to keep him down. So I think what would beat Eubank is age. I think age would beat him. I don't think it'll be Ben actually knocking him out with one big punch, because Ben did land a big punch against Eubank. He took him well. It was fatigue towards the end of the fight, towards the championship rounds, that actually started turning against Eubank Jr. That's what's going to be ultimately his not downfall, but that's going to actually be what beat him, is a little bit of Ben, his enthusiasm and youthful vigor, and age on the other side. You know, the fact that Eubank's been in there with the biggest names. He's had a smart career, man. Believe it or not, Eubank Jr., he's always been on the top 10, top 15 rankings for a decade plus.
Never won a world title, though.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to say. He's made a ridiculous amount of money, incredible amount of money, for the fact that he's never really beaten a solid champion. That's an excellent maneuvered career. The fact that he was able to, ride his last name from his father and have a successful career without becoming a champion. IBO, if you want to call that a championship.
Nah.
I don't. But he came a long way, and I think any real champion would look at that resume and look at that success that Eubank had and be jealous of him. Like, I want that type of career.
He certainly made a lot of money for that first Conor Ben fight. Going to make a lot of money in the second Conor Ben fight. And then, with or without Conor Ben, if he wins, will be in position to be a Canelo opponent in 2026. I want to ask you about Zurdo Ramirez, who defended his unified cruiserweight championship this past weekend against Uniel Dorticos. Now, the assumption is that Zurdo will look to make a fight against Jai Apataya. I think all the boxing heads want to see that. That is a clear battle between number 1 and number 2 in the cruiserweight division. But there still is Jake Paul kind of lurking out there as a potential opponent. The WBA decided to rank Jake Paul in their top 15. We don't need to get into that on this show right now. But what it does mean is that Jake is now eligible to fight for the title that Zurdo Ramirez currently holds. One thing that Jake's team, led by Nikisa Badarian, brought up this week is that, Jake wants to fight a guy like Zurdo, but he needs Zurdo to bring some outside stuff to the table. He needs Zurdo to market himself a little bit better. Zurdo has said, hey, I'm the champion. I don't have to do that. I don't have to market myself. I've got the belts. You want to come and get them. Where do you stand on that? You've been a champion. You've also been extremely annoying in the buildup to a fight. Does Zurdo Ramirez need to do more to sell himself to get bigger fights?
Mira, yo te digo así, Zurdo habla español, es campeón, yo estoy de acuerdo con el Zurdo Ramírez. ¿Por qué chingados voy a hablar inglés? Nomás para gente como tú.
We are an English show, Sergio. Could you please translate?
I basically said nonsense, man. Zurdo is a 2-division champion. He's 34 years old. He's had 50 fights, only lost one time against Bivol, and no shame in losing there. And he's made a lot of money. I mean, he's had a successful career, 50 professional fights and once beaten. And he's still on top of his game. He still has his faculties, still, a handsome, marketable guy. And he does it without marketing himself, like Jake Paul says. Who gives a hell, man? The biggest, greatest Mexican legends never spoke English. I'm talking about Chavez and Morales Barrera. Even Duran, who's only half Mexican. I don't know if people know that. Panamanian, great. But these guys didn't care about, crossing over and speaking English. That's actually what made them more popular with Spanish-speaking Latino crowd. The fact that they didn't try to cross over and, quote unquote, sell out. Because look, what makes them popular is bleeding and shedding blood for their pride, for their country. That's what makes them great. And that's what fans that aren't Latino and aren't countrymen appreciate. They value that. There's pride in that as well. That you don't need to speak Spanish. You don't need a large social media following. And I don't agree with Jake Paul on this one. It worked for him because he's not a real fighter. He wasn't born poor. He doesn't come from poverty. He is a Disney sensation that used that mass following. He used his popularity and he became somewhat of a boxer that's respected now. Man, that's a fascinating story. I applaud him. But he has the gift of gab. He has the right look, meaning he's a white guy from the Midwest. Now I know Ohio's the Midwest.
Great. Awesome.
And it's a different demographic that's going to hit the American appeal a lot different than a Mexican from Sinaloa. It is what it is. Sinaloa. I'm from Sinaloa, by the way, my family. It's going to hit differently. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Anyone will tell you that. In any business, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, especially in boxing. He's been this successful for this long. Keep going in that direction.
It's not about speaking English, because Zurdo does speak English, and he speaks it at press conferences, in interviews, at weigh-ins. It's about kind of bringing a little bit of flair to the fight week. And the guys you mentioned, Chavez, Duran, they did that. They did bring some flair to the fight weeks. If you go back and look at some of their...
I just said they didn't speak English and didn't even try to bother speaking English.
It's not about speaking English. Like, it's about kind of bringing some combativeness, talking trash in Spanish.
Duran was a king of combativeness. What are you talking about? Morales.
No. But this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. Zurdo doesn't do that. That's. I don't think Jake Paul is looking for Zurdo to speak English more. I think he's looking for some of that bravado and looking for some of that.
El gran campeón mexicano Chavez. He never did that. He didn't speak out. He didn't push people in press conferences.
Okay, but the other guys you mentioned did. None of that. Duran did. Morales did.
Duran was a monster.
Ricardo Mayorga. Go down the list of like these non-English speaking fighters.
Do not bring Ricardo Mayorga into a fight with greats like Chavez, Morales, Barrera, Marquez, Duran, Salvador Sanchez.
But all these guys, look, I don't want to see Zurdo turn into like a Bond villain now. Like I don't. It's too late. Like he's in his mid-30s. It's like that ship has sailed. Could he be a little more demonstrative at press conferences? You and I have been.
Give me an example of demonstrative.
I mean, like at the weigh-in against Dorticos, they were close to kind of like Dorticos looked like he wanted to like shove him. Like Dorticos looked pissed off. Like would I've liked to have seen Zurdo maybe do a little bit more than just kind of smile at him and gab a little bit back. You know, like it's all stuff that like, you did it. You were annoying. Daniel Jacobs called you the most annoying fighter he has ever gone up against. Like you understand the need to sell a fight. That's what they're looking for. Zurdo to help sell a fight. And look, you can't deny that it would help him because even though he's done some decent crowds in Southern California, you look at his recent fights. He fought Chris Billum-Smith over in Saudi Arabia. He was the co-main event of his last fight against Dorticos. Like, if he could be a little bit more marketable, could he help himself getting bigger fights? Maybe. And probably make himself a little more money in the process. Maybe.
Look how long, who's the most successful Mexican champion out there? And by successful, I mean...
Mexican or Mexican-American? Just straight Mexican.
Canelo. Exactly. Yeah. It took him 60 plus fights to finally learn and speak English. He's only been doing that for the last.
But you're hung up on the English stuff, though. Like Canelo shoved Caleb Plant. Okay. You think that didn't help?
No. Hold on. But he's not slapping people. He's not doing all that stuff.
Slap Caleb Plant.
That's a one only.
Okay, but that's one.
But he's already a superstar. He was already.
Looked like he was going to slap Oscar De La Hoya during the fight week against Munguia.
But he did not. What I'm saying.
People got between them.
What I'm saying is he became Canelo. He became the greatest. The most profitable, lucrative. Successful Mexican champion in history because he
shoved
didn't do
Crawford.
All that. Because he didn't do all that. Yeah, but that's in the end of it. He's already at the end of his career. I'm talking about.
So isn't Zurdo.
What got him to this point?
So Zurdo's at the end of his career too. Like, I mean, look.
Mexicans are known I don't want to go here, but Mexicans are known to do their talking outside the ring. All right, I'm Mexican American. All right. I didn't do a lot of talking, man. Even though I annoyed Daniel Jacobs, I didn't push no one at press conference. I didn't talk stuff.
Oscar did some talking in his day.
I wasn't like that. A lot of Mexicans are like that. And if the Mexican fans or people want to see Mexicans do that, they're not going to believe it. It's not believable, man. Mexicans have a culture of we do all our talking in the ring, and they do. We don't do all the talking outside the ring. So I just think it'll be, what's the word I'm looking for? Where Zurdo Ramirez, it'll be unbecoming of Zurdo Ramirez to all of a sudden try to sell a fight just to please guys like Jake Paul and try to get a social media. Because that's not what Zurdo was, or gonna be. Zurdo is a quiet, likable, shy, kind of cute guy that tries to speak English. and he gives you that little grin, that's what makes him likable. That's what made him a 2-division champion. That's what made him successful. Don't try to change it, not to try to gain a following.
It worked for some people. Manny Pacquiao was like that. He never really engaged with opponents during fight week.
One of the greatest, richest fighters in history.
Yes. At the same time, though, I think Zerto, who is not on Pacquiao's level, does not sell pay-per-views like Pacquiao did in his best years. I think he could probably benefit from just being a little more engaged during these fight weeks. That's all I'm saying. Again, I don't want to see him turn into Ricardo Mayorga or somebody that is over the top crazy.
Right.
But could he be a little bit more? Perhaps. I think that's certainly possible for Zerto. Still, if it's not Jake Paul, I do want to see him in against Jai Apatai. I think that's the number one fight for me for Zerto Ramirez. All right, last topic I want to get to is the fight we've got this weekend. Jack Catterall going up against Eubank. We just talked about Chris Eubank Jr. Now we get Harlem Eubank, his cousin. That fight is going to be at welterweight. Jack Catterall looked good against Regis Prograis. Didn't look that good in his last fight against Arnold Barboza. Now he's going up to face a pretty slick boxer in Harlem Eubank in a new weight class. Kind of Jack Catterall's last stand here, Sergio. Do you think that he can pull off a win against Harlem Eubank?
It's going to be a tricky fight because Catterall likes guys coming at him. El Gato's really good with breaking that distance. I mean, he's 5'7", but he knows how to fight small. He's a southpaw and he knows how to use those tactics. He has veteran experience. He's given everyone hell. And the only two guys that beat him, were champions, Barboza and Josh Taylor. But he got his lick back against Josh Taylor. I really like Jack Catterall, but I like him at 140. At 5'7" at most, 68, 69-inch reach. He wasn't a puncher at 140, and he's definitely not going to be a puncher at 147 where there's nothing but tall, lanky punchers. Haney, a tall guy that uses his length. Garcia, even taller, powerful guy with speed. Boots, even better than Garcia. And Brian Norman, that guy with, knocking out everybody. They're the same height, but he fights different. He fights taller. Catterall is just too short and too compact to move up in weight. So I don't like him moving up to 147. But if it's something he has to do at this stage of his career, because he is in his 30s now and he can't make that weight comfortably, then he has no choice. But if he struggled knocking guys out and getting the respect of people at 140, it's only gonna, it's only gonna be worse at welterweight.
I think for Catterall, it's not about challenging for a world title at 147. It's about setting up a trilogy fight with Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor recently fought at 147 pounds. Theoretically, he's still out there, may still want to fight again at that weight class. If he can beat Harlem Eubank, I think the next fight for Catterall would be a trilogy fight, which would match up two guys that are kind of at the same stage of their careers.
I got a better fight. Yes,
okay.
That fight will be good in the UK. And there's history there. But I like the Rolly Romero fight against Jack Catterall.
Everybody's going to want to fight Rolly Romero.
He has a belt. Rolly Romero is pretty much the same height. He's compact too. He's short like Catterall. He's wide like Catterall, but he doesn't have the footwork of Catterall. And I think stylistically, that's a fight that Catterall can win and become a champion. So I would love a fight. Catterall versus Romero. But Romero, like you said, he has options. He has the opportunity to get a rematch with Garcia or even bigger fish to fry. But it makes sense in the UK. I like the Josh Taylor fight, but I would prefer an American. Josh
Taylor, look, he's lost 3 fights in a row, lost a domestic level fight to Eko Asuman. So who knows what's there for Josh Taylor. But if Josh Taylor wants to keep fighting, a Catterall fight makes some sense. Then you could probably still sell that as the rubber match between those two guys. I just wonder how Catterall is going to look at 47. Look, Harlem Eubank is undefeated, has looked good in some of his recent fights, most recently a knockout win over Tyrone McKenna. But Catterall will be the best opponent that Harlem Eubank has faced. His resume is not... doesn't have any guys that have the resume of Jack Catterall. So I think it's going to be a good fight, a competitive fight, not a slobber knocker, to use my favorite word, by any stretch. But I think it has the potential. I think Jack can win that fight. I think he can beat Harlem Eubank and then go on, maybe fight Josh Taylor for the 3rd time and see if he can make some money doing that. But that's a fight you can watch on DAZN. Before we go, Sergio, I have to, in real time, I've got to note this, that we're on a text chain with all the people that we work with at DAZN, and our boss, Chris Glanville, just sent a note saying someone, and he blurred out the person who sent this message.
9 messages.
Please try and get me a city view on the hotel. Haven't had one recently. Says, guess which prima donna talent sent this message? It was not me. It was not Todd Grisham. It was not anyone associated with the broadcast next week in New York City. It was one Sergio Mora requesting a city view from the hotel in Midtown Manhattan.
What can you say? I'm a bougie Mexican.
You are a lot. That's what I have to say about that.
Sí, señor.